Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyre from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys coming from the NBA world. The biggest headline, the biggest story in the world of basketball coming this afternoon, this evening, and it's about Kyrie Irving, of course. So I will share my thoughts on Kyrie Irving decided to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving has decided to opt into his $37 million deal for the 2022-2023 season. This will now be his fourth season with the Brooklyn Nets. And to confirm, there was many reports, but the main source is Kyrie Irving himself, who posted on Twitter when the news was released, posting a GIF on Twitter, "I know who I am." Leave it to Kyrie Irving, out of all players, anybody associated in the NBA, to get the whole NBA world's hopes up for an extraordinary NBA offseason. We could have seen the collapse of the Brooklyn Nets happen in a few days, honestly, because without Kyrie Irving there, Kevin Durant would have left. Kyrie Irving got so many teams so hyped, so energetic for the news that he could be a free agent this summer and could have been traded in a sign and trade deal this summer. You had the New York Knicks fan base getting hyped, getting excited that they could get a star player in Kyrie Irving this summer. You had myself thinking the Miami Heat might make a big splash, a big move to give Jimmy Butler another perimeter scorer. You had Los Angeles Clippers fans thinking of the idea you could have a big trio of Kyrie Irving, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard all together in LA. And then the icing on the cake was the Los Angeles Lakers fan base, who probably felt the most of this news, felt the most upset about this news, that Kyrie Irving has decided to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, and there will be no reunion of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, not just yet, or maybe it will never happen, because LeBron James is already heading into his 20th season, and Kyrie might be here for the long haul in Brooklyn. Leave it to Kyrie Irving to get the whole NBA hopes up, and we all could have maybe seen Kevin Durant with a new team, maybe go home and play in DC with the Washington Wizards, maybe team up in Portland to play with Damian Lillard. But all these possibilities just got shut down because Kyrie Irving decided to opt back into his deal with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I feel like Kyrie Irving truly wanted to leave the Brooklyn Nets. There were so many reports throughout the day that he was interested in mainly going to the Lakers to reunite with LeBron James, to team up with him and Anthony Davis in LA. I really do believe Kyrie Irving does not want to be with the Brooklyn Nets. I do believe that he really was co-signing with the idea, flirting with the idea in his head that, hey, maybe I could team up in South Beach with Jimmy Butler and a Bam Adebayo in Miami and be a part of that Heat culture. But unfortunately, the Brooklyn Nets could not find a sign and trade deal that they were really comfortable with. And there were even reports this afternoon that the Los Angeles Lakers sent the Brooklyn Nets a swap and trade deal that would have sent Russell Westbrook to the Brooklyn Nets and would have sent Kyrie Irving to the Los Angeles Lakers. And I said that deal, which is, I still think that's a pretty reasonable deal. I said that last week on last week's episode 55 on our Instagram page. You can find that on Apple Podcasts as well. But I said that last week. I really thought that's a really fair trade for both teams. But Brooklyn Nets were not comfortable with that and the sign and trade deal. I know they were also they were also in with the Miami Heat talking about a sign and trade deal, but the Miami Heat were not, and I'm glad they didn't do this, but they were not comfortable with trading Jimmy Butler, trading Bam Adebayo, or Tyler Hero. I would have traded Tyler Hero to get Kyrie Irving. It's a risk for a high reward, but I would have pulled that off. So the Nets weren't really comfortable with getting anything in return for Kyrie Irving, and you're not going to release a high-class point guard, one of the best point guards of this generation. You're not going to just release him. You're going to get something out of it. And unfortunately, the Brooklyn Nets couldn't find any deal. And I think Kyrie Irving knew he wasn't going to get traded if the Brooklyn Nets were not comfortable with finding a great trade partner for a sign and trade deal. So I think this is why Kyrie Irving opted in, because he is getting $37 million at the end of the day, at the end of the 2022-2023 season. So secure the bag, and maybe if you're not happy after this season, he can be a free agent next summer. He will be unrestricted come next summer. But the story here is, can the Brooklyn Nets really get better this offseason? You have Kevin Durant, you have Kyrie Irving, you still have that core, and believe it or not, Ben Simmons is still on this roster, who has failed to play one single game since being traded back in January/February before the NBA trade deadline occurred. So you still have those three players. Those are your three main players there in Brooklyn. But can you really get better this offseason? I'm looking at the big offseason names that's supposed to be a unrestricted free agents in the next few days. I'm looking at Zach LaVine, who I'm hearing reports is about to close the door and re-sign and come back to Chicago, re-sign with the Chicago Bulls. Bradley Beal is really interested, or there's reports that it is a strong chance that Bradley Beal signs that Supermax deal and stays with the Washington Wizards on a 5-year deal. Those two players are the best players available for this NBA offseason that's currently an unrestricted free agent. It doesn't seem like you're going to get your hands on either one of those two talented star players. And James Harden could be a free agent as well, but you're damn sure not bringing James Harden back because of the conflict between himself and Kyrie Irving. So those are the top three names this summer that's going to be a free agent, and you're not going to get your hands on all three of those players if James Harden decides to become a free agent this summer. They have no first round, and thanks to the James Harden trade that took place a season ago in the 2020-2021 season, when the Brooklyn Nets did trade for James Harden, they gave up several first-round picks, and the Houston Rockets own all their first-round picks all the way up to 2027. Are you really going to play around with a 2027 first-round pick? That's at least 4 years until any team can use that. So I don't see them trading for a star player this summer because you're not going to give up Kevin Durant. You're not going to give up Kyrie Irving. You may give up Ben Simmons. Is that going to be enough to land you a star player this summer? The only option I can see the Nets, and Vegas currently has them as the odds-on favorite to sign Deandre Ayton, who is an unrestricted free agent this summer. But will they really get their hands on Deandre Ayton? I think that's the only chance that the Brooklyn Nets can get better this offseason, if they go and pursue Deandre Ayton and bring him in and officially sign him to become a Brooklyn Net for next season. Which leads me to the question. If you don't get Deandre Ayton, if you don't get any star players this summer, and you go into next season with the roster that you have, can you truly compete in the Eastern Conference next season? Yes, all the glitz and the glamour of the regular season that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will be putting up points together if Kevin Durant is healthy and if Kyrie Irving is 100% locked into the Brooklyn Nets and locked in to play on a nightly basis. Is Ben Simmons still going to sit out and say, I am still injured, even though he has not played a basketball game in over 365 days? How is this team going to compete next year in the West? Because I'm still looking at the Miami Heat, who's still going to be a threat come playoff time next year in the East and the regular season. I'm looking at the Boston Celtics, who are will be the reigning defending Eastern Conference champions. They're not going anywhere. I'm looking at the Philadelphia 76ers. As much as I criticize Joel Embiid and James Harden, they're going to bowl out in the regular season and be a top 3, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference next year. You can never count out Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton. You can't count out that trio. So and maybe the Atlanta Hawks might get better this summer. But where do the Brooklyn Nets fit in the Eastern Conference? I don't believe they could compete with those teams I just named, minus the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think they compete with the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, until you get a dominant big man, because the Bucks have Giannis. The Celtics have Horford and Williams combined as the best big men and 2 big men and a starting rotation in the Eastern Conference. You have the Heat, who still have Bam Adebayo. Of course, the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid. So all these teams have size. The Brooklyn Nets have shooters. They have depth off their bench, but you don't have a dominant big man. Andre Drummond, is that really going to cut it for the Brooklyn Nets competing against these teams next year? Is Ben Simmons going to play at the... there's no size that the Brooklyn Nets truly have right now. LaMarcus Aldridge, are you really going to compete with those guys late in your career? And this is the second question. I'll get to the main question. Can Kyrie Irving and Steve Nash truly coexist? There's been problems, and there's been reports and speculation that Kyrie Irving and Steve Nash do not see eye to eye whatsoever. Kyrie Irving does not believe in him as a coach. And I think Steve Nash was tired of Kyrie Irving's BS last year and not being a vaccinated player. Again, I don't criticize Kyrie Irving for not being a vaccinated player. I criticize Kyrie Irving for not showing up to work and basically stealing $36 million a year to be a part-time basketball player. I think Steve Nash truly got tired of that last year, and I think that's the reason why James Harden requested a trade last year. In his first year, you could say full year with the Brooklyn Nets. So can these two coexist? Because it seems like Steve Nash is going to be here for the long haul, unless the Brooklyn Nets get swept again in the first round next year. And it doesn't seem right to me that these guys are going to be in the same organization again next year. What is the relationship status between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving? They're not broken up, but they've been seeing other people. I mean, Kevin Durant, I know Kevin Durant has been talking to players around the league, talking about, could we team up here, could we team up there? Because Damian Lillard's not just going to post an Instagram story of a photo edit with Kevin Durant in a Trailblazers jersey alongside of him. He's been talking to others. So Kevin Durant has been weighing his options, seeing what is out there for him. Kyrie Irving was definitely because he was intrigued at the fact that he could join LeBron James and Anthony Davis in Los Angeles with the Lakers. So these two have been flirting with other fish in the sea. It'll be interesting to see how healthy the relationship will be between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And mind you that Kevin Durant didn't stick up for his boy. This is the same guy that Kevin Durant left Golden State for, Steph Curry, to play alongside Kyrie Irving. And how many times do we hear Kevin Durant stick up for his boy this NBA offseason? But he stuck up for him so many times during the regular season, any other time that Kyrie Irving gets criticized. So the relationship is bendy, it's rocky. We will see if it's a healthy marriage come the regular season in the fall. Time will tell if the Brooklyn Nets really made the right decision to let Kyrie opt into his $37 million deal for the 2022-2023 season. Because if something else happens and Kyrie does not want to be a full-time player, the Brooklyn Nets could trade him before the trade deadline. But they have nobody to blame but themselves, because they could have took so many offers that was probably presented to them. You probably could have had Russell Westbrook, who obviously has had the worst season of his career, of his Hall of Fame career last season. But you would get a player who at least plays every night and could be his true self if you did the swap and trade deal that was presented to you earlier in the afternoon. Time will tell if Kyrie Irving is truly the man for the job. Is Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn for the long haul, or to secure his $37 million bag and then be unrestricted next summer to go freely wherever he wants without a sign and trade clause being over top of his head and over top of Brooklyn Nets' head as a franchise? So time will tell. Like I said, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, if he plays with them, will show all their glitz, all their glamour of what they can truly do in the regular season. But come postseason, they're going to be nowhere to found, and they're going to be a disappointment for Brooklyn. I'm calling it right now. They're not getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're not getting to the NBA Finals next year. You heard it first on June 27, 2022. But that is all the time I have for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off, and I'll see you guys on next week's episode.